Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our live free Friday class where we talk about topics for the American accent and I take your questions. You can ask your questions at any time in the chat box. Let me know if you need help with pronunciation, intonation, anything else related to the American accent. I'm happy to answer questions. In today's class, we're going to be looking back at some of the sounds we've been looking at in our American Sounds Challenge. So far we've covered about 6 sounds. We're going to go through and review some of that information, take your questions, and I'll share with you some additional resources for those sounds and for additional help with the American accent. If you're just joining Speech Modifications live classes and you're new to us, welcome. We have people from all over the world who attend the class, and you can leave your questions, as I said, in the chat, or if you're watching this as a replay, please feel free to leave questions in the comments. I do always go back and answer those questions, give you resources to help you find what you're looking for from speech modification. So in today's class, as I said, we're going to be doing some review, talking about some resources for the American Sounds Challenge. I started the American Sounds Challenge as a way to help people get thorough training in American English, the American accent, for free. I do have a lot of resources on my website, speechmodification.com, that are also free, so I hope you'll take advantage of those. Sometimes it can be hard to navigate and find your way around, so I'm going to show you some details today about where to get answers to your questions and how to proceed with that. I do teach here locally in the Bellevue and Seattle area, so if you're in this area and you're interested in American accent training, check out my January classes in Bellevue. I hope you can join me for that. I'm currently running a sale on my online courses, so you can get any of my online courses free for 2 weeks to check it out, see if online learning is right for you, and then there's a very low subscription cost if you'd like to subscribe and get those lessons and take part in that training. So check all of those out on speechmodification.com. Today, let's talk a little bit about some sounds of English, and I want to look at vowel sounds and consonant sounds and help you understand how we have accent patterns on these sounds, what to do to correct them. I do talk about the individual sounds in the American Sounds Challenge and many of my other videos and walk you through those steps, but sometimes when we're just getting going with American accent training, it can be pretty overwhelming. Hi, nice to see you. And so I want to give you some tips for when you're first getting started. Our quick tip today is going to be about how to manage all of the resources and information there is out there on American accent. So far in the American Sounds Challenge, we looked at 3 vowel sounds. So we looked at the sound E, like in need and eat. We looked at the vowel I, like in live and didn't. We looked at vowel schwa, which sounds like It's in words like some and fun and money and such. And then we also looked at some consonant sounds. So we looked at the flap T sound, which is the T sound in the middle of words like water and little. We looked at the S sound, that's at the beginnings of words like see and say, and the ends of words like bus and peace. And we looked at the V sound, the V, which is in the beginning of words like very and voice, and the ends of words like have and give. Our next Sounds Challenge class will be tomorrow at 9 a.m., and we're talking about the Z sound and focusing mostly on the Z sound at the ends of words, but we'll tell you all about the error patterns you might have on Z, how Z works, how to correct it. So you can check out the past lessons for the sounds I just talked about on my playlist, American Sounds Challenge. If you go to Speech Modification Seattle, the YouTube page, you can see that playlist. You can also see the upcoming live streams, so when we're having more challenge classes and our Friday classes. So let's take a look a little bit at how vowels and consonants work. In order to make sounds, we have to make a shape with our mouth, obviously, and it's often something that we don't think about. We basically, when we're talking, have to rely on having motor habits, having patterns, because I can't think about where's my tongue, how am I holding my mouth, how am I saying this sound. I'm very busy thinking about what to say, the language, the words, If I'm not a native speaker, I might still be thinking in my native language and translating. And so we rely on our mouth to have habits. And we have the habits that we do when speaking because of our native language. So when you learn your first language, you learn a sound system, you learn the way sounds are created and put together, and rules for that sound system just by listening and speaking. You aren't necessarily taught these rules, you just can do it. And when you learn second languages and third languages, the first way that you learned really affects the future languages. So it acts like a filter, both in your brain and also for those motor patterns, those motor habits and movements. And so being aware of where you have differences between your language and the English language is the first step. How can I do that? I've done a lot of research for you so that you can take a look at my website, speechmodification.com, and you can find out, okay, if my native language is Spanish or Arabic or French or an Indian language, Chinese, any language, you can look at speechmodification.com and you can see an overview that says, okay, based on your native language, here are the sounds and error patterns you can expect to find. And I'll show you where those are, because I think that for most people, it's very eye-opening. When they get that information, they can see, oh, okay, yeah, I do that pattern, or I don't do that pattern. But then that helps you focus in on what you should be paying attention to. It can be overwhelming to just think, I know I'm not pronouncing things right. I don't know what it is. And so when you have a place to start, that's really useful. So on speechmodification.com, I have a lot of resources. You can see my online courses, my group and Seattle classes, and my one-to-one training. But for free resources, many of them are here on free practice and the free online trial. So I highly recommend checking that out. What I wanted to show you now, you'll find on my store page, and that's here in the free downloads. So go to the store page, look at free downloads, and then you'll see a lot of information that you can get and download and use to start. So here are the overviews of accent. If I look at, for example, Arabic, I can pull that up. And it's a PDF. It's going to tell me the sound, the error pattern I might have, and give me some example words. And that way I can say, okay, yeah, I can see and notice that I do that same pattern. And then another free download that you might like to look at for that affects most speakers regardless of what your language background is my American English Vowels download. And this one is right now on sale for free. So again, you can download that, and it's going to show you the vowel sounds, the vowel spellings, common words with the vowels, and it's going to help you get organized for vowels. So I'm often showing information about vowels in these classes. I get a lot of questions about how do I pronounce this word or how do I pronounce that vowel. And oftentimes it's because of the vowel that you have a difficulty with pronunciation or pronunciation difference. And so in the download, you'll see, again, the vowel sound. So for example, this one we talked about in the vowel challenge, it's E. It's in words like green tea. So there's an anchor word for you. Here's the top 10 most frequent words that have that vowel. So that's a great place to start practicing. I really emphasize practicing on the words and phrases that you actually say, as opposed to word lists with the E sound. So, for most people, practicing on eagle or Easter or eager, those aren't words that we use very often, but we do use words like please, here, keep, least, me, need, etc. In fact, we use these in about 80% of our speech is made up of these words, the most frequently used words. And so if you think about that, if you can change your accent patterns on the most frequently used words in English, it's going to have a big effect on your overall speech. You're also going to become aware of this vowel sound, these vowel sounds, on words that you use a lot. So 80% of your speech is made up of about 1,000 words or less. Those are the words we focus on in my training, in my classes, and in these classes. And then you have specific words that you use a lot. And when you become familiar with your accent patterns, with correcting those patterns, then you'll notice that in those words as well. Hi, Shahir. Nice to see you. Okay, so I have the vowel sound. This is the IPA symbol, the International Phonetic Alphabet symbol. You'll find it in the dictionary when you're looking up a word so you can know what the vowel is. These are the most common spellings for the vowels. This is my anchor word to give you something to compare to and the most frequently used words. So that's on my vowels download on my website, and that's something that we'll keep referring back to in our American Sounds Challenge. Please feel free to ask your questions at any time today. It doesn't have to be about vowel sounds or sounds from the challenge. If you have something you need help with, I'm happy to answer your question. So I hope you can take advantage of that. Some additional tools on my website, besides the accent overviews and the vowel downloads, are my videos and lessons. You can use the American Playlist lessons, and I also have several previous challenges where I give you 5-minute lessons, 15-minute lessons, or longer lessons. So I hope that you'll try to check those out. We cover how to practice and improve for these patterns in my online classes and in my group classes, so join me for those. I would like to give you a little bit more information about consonant sounds. So we talked a lot about vowels. How do we know about consonant sounds? And what is the difference between a vowel and a consonant sound? So the vowel sounds, we have vowels and consonants that are letters. So in American English, the vowel letters are A, E, I, O, and U. The vowel sounds, there's 5 of those, but there's 15 vowel sounds. So those are A, E, etc. I'm not going to talk about all of those vowels, but we will be talking about each one individually in the American Sounds Challenge. So you can see that letters and sounds don't line up. I have 15 sounds and 5 letters. So these are the vowels. And then for consonants, there's 26 letters in the alphabet. So if there's 5 vowel consonants, there's 21 letters. And off the top of my head, I don't know how many consonant sounds there are. I will get back to you with that information. But consonant letters are, let's see, B, C, D, F, G, etc. So you probably learned vowels and consonants when you were learning to spell and write in English, in your native language as well. And you might think of it as these letters and these letters. And what my training will do and the American Sounds Challenge will do is to help you begin to think about sounds rather than letters. Consonants are more consistent with spelling. So the B usually says B. The C, well, that's a little inconsistent. It can say K, and it can say S. It can also say part of Ch, and sometimes Sh. So vowels are worse, but consonants do have different pronunciation. The IPA symbols for the consonants often match something familiar for you. So when you see this, letter B and the sound B, you're able to match those up. But what is the sound difference between vowels and consonants? So the difference is that when I make a vowel sound, my mouth is making a shape, but things are not connecting in my mouth. So my tongue is creating the vowel sound by its position in my mouth. So for example, when I'm saying E, the vowel we were talking about earlier, that's in need and see and she, my tongue is high and in the front. So the shape of my mouth dictates that sound. My mouth is not very open. E, my jaw is close together. My tongue is up high. E, it's near the front. Versus the vowel ah, my jaw is open. My tongue is near the bottom. Ah, this mouth shape makes that sound. But for all of the vowels, e, ah, oo, my lips, teeth, and tongue are not connecting. Versus the consonant sounds, are made by some type of connection or near connection with the mouth. So for example, we talked about the p sound, letter P, the sound p in our challenge, and that's made by putting the lips together, p, stopping the air, and then releasing the air. So there's contact between my lips in that sound. Or, for example, the T sound, t, t, is made with contacting the tongue in a specific place in the mouth called the alveolar ridge behind the teeth. T, again, stopping the air and releasing. T, t. Also in the challenge, we talked about the V sound. That's made with the teeth touching the lip. V, it restricts the air, makes that fricative sound, and we continue that sound. V. So consonants, I always have something touching. I'm always going to be talking about for you what your lips should be doing, where your tongue should be, what's touching and what's releasing. That makes it different than a vowel sound, which is just about the shape, where my tongue is and how open or closed my mouth is. So consonants and vowels have a slightly different approach. Sometimes consonants are more concrete and easier to understand, easier to make changes on. Vowels have more to do with being able to hear and listen, and also use the cues for the mouth shape to make those vowels. Hi, nice to see you. It's great to see everyone here today. There haven't been a lot of questions, so if you have your questions, go ahead and ask those now before we move on to our quick tip. We've talked about consonant sounds and vowel sounds in general. We'll get more specific with our consonant and vowel sounds in the American Sounds Challenge. And as I said, the next class for that will be tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I hope you can join me for that. We're going to be talking about an important sound in English, the Z sound. We spell it with letter S and letter Z. And it's an important sound because we use it a lot at the ends of words for grammar. So we use that Z sound to make things plural, for possessives, for verb tenses. And if you have an error pattern on that sound, it can sound like you're making a grammatical mistake when really you just have a pronunciation difference. So check that out tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Coast time and all around the world. If you're watching the replay, you can check that out later in the playlist for the American Sounds Challenge on Speech Modification Seattle, my YouTube channel. So let's talk about a quick tip for today. First of all, I suggest subscribing to the channel. You can click on the bell to get notified. It'll let you know every time we have a free live class and when I upload new videos. It's a great way to stay up with the American Accent Challenge and with these live question and answer classes. Oftentimes you have a goal that you'd like to improve your American accent, but you need reminders that you're working on it. You need help with actually attending class and being part of it. And so the YouTube subscription and the reminders is a great way to do that. For me, anytime I'm learning or working on something new, I have the motivation, but I don't always remember. And the day can go by and I haven't done any work towards it. And so I try to use reminders to help myself to stay on track. Okay, Alex has a question. Do I have any advice on what would be a good 10-minute practice to do daily to make improvements? Very good. Yes, I do. So once you've identified some of the patterns that you have to work on, there's a lot of different levels of practice. And so for most people, when they identify a pattern, they're able to correct that pronunciation or that pattern fairly easily when they're just saying the sound and when they're just saying the words. But then they go to talk at work or in a conversation, and that change isn't happening. That's because of the motor habits, because we start talking and then the way we've always done it is what comes out. And so what I really like, my favorite type of practice that is perfect for about 10 minutes a day, is called repeated phrase practice. This is where I take a common phrase, one or two words, and then I add my own words to it. So for example, say I was working on the V sound, one of the sounds we've been talking about in our challenge. I'm going to take the phrase very blank. Very is the most frequently used word with the V sound at the beginning. And I'm going to fill in the blank. So I'm going to say, oh, very good, very helpful, very excited, very busy, very blue, very red, very hot, very cold. And you see how the challenging part there is figuring out what to say. So my brain is busy thinking about what I'm going to say, and it doesn't have as much time to think about how I'm pronouncing the V of very. That helps me form a new motor habit and begin to use that without having to think about it so much. It's easier than using it all the time in regular speech, but it's harder than just practicing on the word very because I'm supplying this additional word. It's also good for intonation practice because typically the stressed word is going to be in the blank. So when we talk about intonation, you'll understand that we tend to say this word quickly. You might have noticed very hot, very cold, that the very is short and quick, and the thing in the blank is long and stretched out because it's stressed. And so repeated phrase practice I can use with any accent pattern that I'm working on. Another one, a lot of people have difficulty with the TH sound, and so I might, or the vowel I. So I might want to practice a phrase like in the kitchen, in the business, in the email, in the drawer, in the garage, in the living room, in the meeting, etc. I get lots of practice for the difficult sound and phrase. I end up filling in the blank with things I actually have to say because my brain does that part. And so I get really realistic practice that's going to help me improve and form a new habit. Thank you for that question. I do always give a quick tip in each of my live classes that you can use right away, and you can find which practice techniques work best for you. So I try to give you a variety of different things to do, and you can see which ones are the most effective and efficient for you. And part of what's going to be effective for you is the things that you actually do. So I also like repeated phrase practice because I could do that while I'm driving in the car, while I'm taking a shower. I don't need any special materials or anything in front of me. I just need to remember to do it. You're very welcome, Alex. Thanks for the question. Eduardo has a question, how to pronounce the sound KT. So are you thinking about, for example, in the word act? I have the KT sound, so I have a vowel A and the K and the T. Act. So for K to T, basically I have to sequence those sounds where the K is a back sound, k, k, and the T is more of a front sound, t, t. So for the K, the back of my tongue is lifting, act, and for the T, the front of my tongue is lifting, act. So you might want to just try going slowly, saying the K by itself, k, k, the T by itself, t, t. Then try to put them together, k, t, k, t, k, t. And then just speed up, go more quickly from the K to the T. If that's not the sound sequence that you were hoping for, you can ask me another question and clarify. So yes, I was thinking about the letter X that has a KS sound, which is a similar pattern to do. So yes, a little bit challenging to move from that K to the T. Both are voiceless stop sounds, and the K is in the back and the T is in the front. It doesn't come up that much in that many words, but it does come in some, and I can see why that would be challenging for you. You're welcome, Eduardo. Thank you for the question. Any other questions, please go ahead and ask those in the chat. I'm happy to talk about pronunciation, intonation, difficult words, anything you might need help with. While I'm waiting for your questions, I'm going to go ahead with today's quick tip, which is that I suggest starting with just one pattern, one sound, and how to know which ones have the where to start. You want to choose something that you can do fairly easily, so not the most challenging sound in the beginning, so that you get used to practicing, you get some success with it, and also try to choose one of the sounds that's going to have the biggest impact on your speech. So in the American Sounds Challenge, I tell you about each sound, whether or not how important it is for your speech based on your native language. Again, you can use those accent overviews to download and see which sounds you have. Some of the sounds that are going to have the biggest impact, that are really worth working on the most and first, are some of the ones we did in the first lessons of our challenge. So the vowel schwa, the sound, is the most frequently used sound in American English. And so if you think about that, if you have an error on the sound we say the most, it's going to be a noticeable error in your speech. Working on vowel schwa also really helps you get that natural American sound. because we use it so much. It's a very important sound in the stress patterns of English as well as in pronunciation. I also suggest that the vowel I, like in it, did, and different, has an impact on your speech. It's a good one to start with because for most non-native speakers, the E and the I distinction is not clear enough, and that can cause some confusion when Americans are listening to you. To sound American, working on the T sound, the flap T in the middle of words, and the stop T at the ends of words has a really big impact on having that typical American sound. It's a higher level practice. It doesn't matter so much for pronunciation or for being understood. But if your goal really is to kind of have that American sound, that's a good place to start. And then, of course, the R sound and the TH sounds are also very prevalent in English, and many people have accent errors on those. So you might want to work on those as well. They can be a little bit more difficult to change, especially the American R. But I do have a whole playlist for each of those sounds to help you. So choose one sound, make a small goal for it, get started, try some of these practice techniques, and you'll see a difference in your speech. Don't be overwhelmed by all of the different things you can do. Just try to select a small change that you can do, and you'll see some progress on your accent in just a short time if you can apply some of these smart techniques and get some practice. It can be very manageable if you take it slowly and you are very focused in your goals. So thank you for being a part of class today. Our next challenge class, as I mentioned, will be tomorrow, Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll be talking about the Z sound. I'll go ahead and put that in the comments for you so you can check that out. And you can also find it in upcoming live streams on Speech Modification Seattle. And we'll be back again next Friday for our next question and answer class. So if you have questions that we didn't get to today, come back next Friday and ask them live, or go ahead and put them in the comments and I will get back to you with resources and answers to your questions. Thanks so much for being a part of class today. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.